It's time for a King's Gambit. We saw this fabulous opening in Norway chess today. So, the game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Alireza Firouzja. First classical game was drawn, which means they go into an Armageddon game. And Nepo had the white pieces. And here we go. E4, E5, and he played F4. Now, he has actually just published a course on Chessable fairly recently on the King's Gambit, so maybe this was on his mind. But still, it's great to see. He's putting his money where his mouth is, basically. And as many of you corrected me yesterday, in this Armageddon, in these rules, it's 10 minutes for white and 7 minutes for black. White is a must-win situation. Increment of 1 second after move 40. So black has draw odds. Well, with the King's Gambit, you can be pretty certain that there's going to be a decisive result, particularly with this kind of time control. So not a bad opening choice. And, well, Firouzja plays knight f6. This is the so-called Schalop variation, named after Emil Schalop, who was a German player from Berlin, as I understand it, in the 19th century. And this apparently was his favourite variation. Fairly recently, this variation has come to prominence, actually. For example, Ding Liren defeated Magnus Carlsen with this last year in one of the online rapid tournaments. And it has a pretty good reputation. Nevertheless, I feel that with white, there are plenty of ways to stir up trouble here. And already, I mean, basically, I think you get what you want with the King's Gambit, which is already a rather unorthodox position. So what is the point of this? Well, the knight comes to h5, which means the f4 pawn is protected. And that means if this bishop can't get into the game, then actually that really hampers white's development. Also, this pawn has been tempted forward, which makes it easier for black to break down white's centre. So it's actually quite a clever variation. Now, on my DVDs, I recommended queen e2. I rather like that move, with a simple idea of d4, knight c3, bishop d2, and castling long. It's an old idea of Keres, and, well, it's not bad. It's tricky stuff. Nepo went with d4. And after d6, so attacking white centre, he then went queen e2. And this is a really tricky move now. So one of the traps here, which is so typical of the variation, is you might think with black that the e-file needs blocking, so bishop e7. But just watch this. White wins a piece with this, and queen b5 check. Double attack. That errant knight on h5 drops. It's an oldie but goldie. You'd be surprised. A lot of people have fallen for that. So Firouzja took on e5. Knight takes e5. Well, the queen now threatens the knight, and there is also a threat of knight c6 check. So already, well, a little bit tricky. So black basically has to plunge in with queen h4 check. And of course, g3 from white, this typical move. Now be careful, you don't want to take there, because then there will be a decisive discovered check, hitting the queen, checking the king. So knight takes, and that attacks white's queen. But pawn takes, queen takes h1. So this kind of position is so common in several variations of the King's Gambit, where, well, you know, black goes on a crazy spree with the queen and grabs material. But black's king is now pretty open, and, you know, white's development is fantastic. It's simply, I think, a very unclear position. Well, at least if you don't show this to a computer, it's a very unclear position. I mean, what would you play with black in this position? Don't check the machine. Black to play, what would you do here? And I can tell you, we're on move 10, and after Alireza's next move, he had a lost position. And his next move was a very natural move. This just shows how tricky this position is. But no surprise, look, black just has one piece developed, the queen. So Alireza played bishop e6. Blocking the e file looks reasonable. In fact, the best move here is bishop d6. I mean, this looks such a counterintuitive move because the e file is still open. It's possible to grab that rook in the corner. Actually, black is okay here. But, I mean, if you don't know this variation, it's very hard to divine that. So, for example, after this, the rook gets taken, black takes here, knight c6. Now, at the moment, white is still a piece up. However, black is about to castle queenside, and then, well, at the very least, the knights will be recovered, but there's all kinds of interesting things going on in the centre, and actually, it's white's king here that could be caught out. Of course, white does not need to give a check. Far better to play knight c3. And at the moment, white is only the exchange down. After castles queenside. Now, you know, forget the computers, but between two fallible human beings, I think white's chances here are pretty good. You know, you've got so many pieces in play. This queen looks like it could be in some trouble. I think very unclear. According to the computer, black is slightly better, whatever that means. I'll leave you to investigate that. Anyway, bishop e6, the most natural move played. Knight c3, simple development. And here, if black keeps developing, let's say bishop e7, then you castle queenside. And this queen is very close to getting trapped. Bishop g2, rook h1. And that's going to be game over. In the meantime, you know, there's kind of interesting checks out here as well. But, I mean, bishop g2 is the main threat. White is winning that position. So, Alireza tried g5. And, you know, maybe if that's taken, then bishop h6, there's some potential to trade pieces. But d5 is an excellent move. Just seizing the initiative, not bothering about that bishop. Pawn takes bishop. Pawn takes bishop here, and this is a winning position for white. For example, well, here bishop d6 was played, but let's just have a quick look at pawn takes pawn. Now, a simple move, queen c4, threatening devastation here, and the queen retreats to defend. Queen takes c7, whoops, here we go, queen h6, queen takes c7, there was more devastation than I needed there. Threatening, well, many things, threatening a check here and a rook into the middle, for example. Bishop here, check, here, check. I mean, it's already gone. And queen f7 is coming shortly. I mean, white has a completely winning position there. Okay, so what happened? Bishop d6. Castles queenside. Simple development. Black queen still in massive trouble. If pawn takes pawn, again, white just goes for a direct attack. Knight g4, that's a sweet move. Stops the queen coming back. Queen threatens the pawn here, for example. Simple threats. Rook e1. Queen e6. I mean, this is winning for white. Queen e4 is a great move. Threatening maybe a check here, maybe threatening rook h1. It's absolutely devastating. So in the game, queen h6. So Alireza wants to bring the queen back into play. Check. Knight c6, knight f7. Hits the queen, hits the rook. There's also, watch out for this one as well. queen takes pawn. Okay, now you've just got to be a little bit careful. Don't grab material too early. If you take the rook, castle's queenside, and black is back. Black is back in the game there. Don't do it. Much better to play bishop c4. That knight prevents queenside casting. Of course, anyway, the queen is hit. Queen e3 check, king b1, but yeah. So queenside casting is prevented. Queen b7 threatened. There are many other threats, you know, maybe throwing the knight in as well. All kinds of juicy things. What happens if castle's kingside? Queen g5 mate. That ends the argument. So queen c5 played. Knight takes, pawn takes, queen b7. Simple stuff. King still can't castle. Let me see. The rook is attacked. Rook d8. Queen f7 is mate. I mean, this is horrible. Absolutely horrible. Queen takes bishop. Queen takes rook check. Rook e1 check. Now, are we going to count the material? Not yet, because white is still taking stuff. But white isn't anything down. In fact, white is even 2 pawns up here. And, of course, a mating attack. And, in fact, rook g1 was the final move of the game. Alireza resigned. Let's have a look. Why? Well, okay, these are the steps that the king can take. King h6, check, here, mate. That's easy. King h5, queen g7, again, threatening all kinds of devastation here and here. King f6, knight e4, that picks the queen up. King f5, that picks the queen up, and probably mate as well. Okay, you get the picture. Rook g1 is devastating. Of course, you can give the queen, but that's nice X-ray protection. White's queen will take here. Let me just show that here. And queen for rook up. White is going to checkmate very quickly. Wow, what a game. What an opening. Good old Nepo. Are we going to see that in the World Championship? Nope. However, for an Armageddon game, it is absolutely spot on, and it's great to see. And this variation, which theoretically has such a good reputation, well, destroyed in 25 moves. And Alireza, well, he's no slouch when it comes to tactics, but even he was tripped up. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.